Thank you, Madam Chair and Ranking Member Lukemeyer, for holding this, and thank you to all the witnesses. I appreciate that. You know, Dr. Holtz-Ecken, you had just mentioned that the Obama administration brought in $100 billion of punishing regulatory burdens on small businesses for 8 straight years. Is that what I heard you say?
That's correct.
And in your testimony, in the very first year of this administration, in a pandemic, this administration brought $201 billion of punishing regulations on small business. Is that what you said?
That's correct.
You know, I think we need more people that have signed the front of the checks in small businesses. Mr. Williams, I've only been a small business owner for 31 years, so you got 20 years on me. This is unbelievable. You know, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, they say they want to break up big companies and advocate for small businesses. $200 billion in year 1 of this administration. We always talk about small businesses are the engine of our economy. They're the mom and pop shops that struggle every day. And to hear some of the witnesses talk about, well, these regulations are good, they do this or do that. I think government ought to get out of the way and let small businesses flourish under those prudent regulations that you talked about, Doctor. Reasonable, prudent, not redundant, burdensome, that punishes those small business owners that just want to live the American dream and employ people. This is really frustrating for me to hear this. You know, to that end, Dr. Holtz-Ecken, in the American Competes Act, how are those provisions, how are they furthering harming small businesses? Can you give us a couple examples?
Well, you know, the America Competes is in many ways, well, it is industrial policy. The stated intent is to improve the U.S. competitive position, especially versus China. And there are places where there are broad public goods and government roles and basic research and innovation that make sense. But there's some $50 billion in there to build semiconductor plants, which the private sector can build semiconductor plants. And if they're not in China, they don't have to be in the U.S. They have to be somewhere so they have a diversification of the supply chain. I have no idea why they would move money that was in the Senate bill targeted toward the National Science Foundation and give it to the Department of Commerce to fix supply chains. The Department of Commerce doesn't have a supply chain. Every American business has their own supply chain. They have every incentive to fix it. And so I have no idea what that will be other than tilting the playing field to those who have access to the Department of Commerce to get a subsidy. And so I'm deeply concerned about those kinds of provisions.
Do those kinds of provisions help or harm small businesses?
They're not helpful. Small businesses may not yet have started, and they're going to now have to enter against someone who's got some help from the Department of Commerce. It's not leveling the playing field.
So that's getting involved in competing.
Yeah.
You know, to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle on this committee, we have a responsibility to make sure small businesses across America succeed. My guess is if this keeps up, we're not only going to have $200 billion of punishing, burdensome regulations from this administration in year 1, the same thing is going to happen in year 2. How can we do this to our small businesses? They're the engine of our economy. It is the American dream. When my brothers and I opened up our small sporting goods store in June of 1990 and dished out what we had in the bank to open up a small business and to have this type of regulation, we have an opportunity, Madam Chair, Ranking Member Lukemeyer, on a small business committee to make sure that our small businesses flourish in this country. We need these regulations, the reduction in the regulations, not adding $200 billion a year. This is very frustrating, and this is a challenge for this committee. Madam Chair, Ranking Member Luke Meyer, this is a challenge to stop those burdensome regulations. Madam Chair, I yield back.